What's up, Cowboys Nation? The team is in full throttle, working hard to perfect their game and bring the results we all crave. But after what happened last Sunday, it's clear that perfection is a long way off. Before we dive into the details, smash that like button, subscribe, and let's break down what's really going on with our Cowboys this season. I woke up this morning, still hoping it was just a nightmare. Unfortunately, it wasn't. The Detroit Lions came into AT&T Stadium and handed us the worst defeat of the Jerry Jones era, crushing the Cowboys 47-9. To say I'm disappointed is an understatement. It was a brutal loss that left many of us speechless, and if it weren't for my obligation to you, I'd have probably turned off the TV midway through. But hey, I'm a man of the people, and I'm here to talk about what really went wrong on that field. So, where do we start? Well, there's plenty of blame to go around. From the front office, to the players, to the coaching staff, everyone has a hand in this. But let's get one thing straight. It's not just the players who are to blame for this disaster. If you ask me, the biggest issue this season has been the coaching, and there are three names that stand out. The Mikes, Mike McCarthy, Mike Zimmer, and Mike Solari. Let's begin with the head honcho, Mike McCarthy. At the end of the day, he's the one responsible for everything that happens on that field, especially now that he's also the offensive play caller after Kellen Moore's departure last season. And folks, McCarthy's seat is burning hot right now. The offense was beyond dreadful on Sunday, managing just 9 points off 3 Brandon Aubrey field goals and turning the ball over twice in the red zone. What really frustrated me was how predictable we were on first down. We ran the ball on 10 out of 17 first downs, averaging just 1.1 yards per carry. That put Dak Prescott and the offense in a constant state of second and long, which is not how you win football games. And let's not forget, just a week ago against the Steelers, we saw some pre-snap movement and creative play calling that opened up the field. But it was like McCarthy forgot everything that worked. Instead, we saw static formations 90% of the time. The first jet sweep we ran didn't even come until there were only 3 minutes left in the game, and by then, Cooper Rush was at quarterback. McCarthy's failure to adjust and evolve the offense is holding this team back. We've got the talent, but the coaching just isn't cutting it right now. Now let's move on to the second Mike, Mike Zimmer. I know what you're thinking, but the defense is riddled with injuries, and you're absolutely right. We're missing some key players like Sam Williams, DeMarcus Lawrence, Marshawn Nealon, and Micah Parsons, among others. That's a massive blow to any defense, no doubt. But injuries can't be an excuse forever. Zimmer needs to step up and make adjustments, especially when the secondary is getting torched. Sure, we're dealing with a depleted lineup, but this is the NFL. Every team faces injuries. What separates the great coaches from the good ones is their ability to adapt and still field a competitive team. So far, Zimmer hasn't done that. His schemes are leaving wide open lanes in the secondary, and opposing teams are taking advantage. We need Zimmer to tighten things up, or the season could slip away fast. And finally, let's talk about Mike Solari, the offensive line coach. We brought him in to solidify the line, but so far, it's been the opposite. The offensive line has regressed, and Sunday was one of their worst performances yet. We rushed for just 53 yards and allowed Dak to get sacked 4 times. Last week, we had to shuffle the line after rookie LT Tyler Guyton went down, and the hope was that this new lineup, Tyler Smith, TJ Bass, Cooper Beebe, Zach Martin, and Terrence Steele, would hold things together. But clearly, it didn't work. Aside from Tyler Smith, the line was a disaster. If Solari can't get these guys back on track, we're going to be in for a long season. So, here we are, Cowboys Nation, sitting at 3-3 with no wins at home. Now we head into the bye week, hoping for answers. But if these 3 Mikes don't step up and make the necessary changes, this season might be over before we know it. And let's not forget some of the players who need to be held accountable as well. Malik Hooker, for instance, has been struggling in coverage, already allowing 144 yards this season. His regression is a big reason why our secondary is getting torched week after week. Then there's Motzie Smith, the first-round pick who was supposed to shore up our defensive line against the run. 6 games in, and Smith has been a non-factor, currently ranking 124th out of 125 defensive tackles in the league. That's just not going to cut it. And finally, we have Ezekiel Elliott. Zeke, once the face of this franchise, is averaging just 3.0 yards per carry. The fact that he's still getting carries after Rico Dowdle showed us some serious flashes in recent games is baffling. It's clear that Elliott isn't the player he once was, and it might be time to make a tough decision about his role on this team. As we head into the bye week, the Cowboys need to take a long, hard look at themselves. McCarthy has to rethink his play calling. Zimmer needs to figure out how to stop the bleeding on defense. And Solari, he needs to get the offensive line back to where it was supposed to be. But it's not just on the coaches. The front office has some soul-searching to do too. Jerry Jones and the management didn't do enough to fill the gaps left by key players departing or getting injured. And now we're paying the price. The 49ers are looming in Week 8, and if things don't change quickly, we could be staring down the barrel of another painful loss. The time for excuses is over. It's time for action. After Sunday's blowout loss, fans are understandably frustrated, and many are calling for Mike McCarthy's job. But according to Jerry Jones, McCarthy's seat isn't as hot as people think. In fact, Jones made it clear after the game that he's not even considering firing McCarthy. His exact words were, "I'm not considering it." Just to be clear, I'm not considering it. I know, Cowboys Nation. It's hard to believe after watching that disaster unfold against the Lions. But let's break down what this means and why Jerry Jones is sticking with McCarthy, at least for now. Heading into the bye week with a 3-3 record, the Cowboys are sitting in 3rd place in the NFC East, trailing behind the Washington Commanders for the 2 and the Philadelphia Eagles 3-2. While we're 3-0 on the road, the real issue has been our inability to win at home. We're 0-3 at AT&T Stadium, and in those home games, we've allowed a total of 168 points. That gives us a point differential of -42, which ranks us 15th out of 16 teams in the NFC, just ahead of the 1-5 Carolina Panthers. Yeah, that's rough. But here's the thing. Jerry Jones doesn't seem to think McCarthy is entirely to blame. I don't necessarily put all the blame on McCarthy, Jones said. The players will tell you they had something to do with it. His coaching staff will tell you. And the owner will tell you he had something to do with it, so it's not all his fault. Jerry's taking a more holistic view, and while that might not satisfy fans who want to see changes immediately, it does offer some insight into how he's thinking about this season. One of the reasons Jones isn't throwing McCarthy under the bus is the long list of injuries the Cowboys are dealing with, especially on defense. All-Pro linebacker Micah Parsons missed a game against the Lions with an ankle injury, and we're also without 2023 Pro Bowl cornerback Darren Bland and veteran defensive end DeMarcus Lawrence. Lawrence was leading the team with 3.0 sacks before he went down 2 weeks ago. Without these key players, it's no surprise the defense has struggled. But does that fully explain the level of collapse we've seen, particularly in our home games? Losing Parsons, Bland, and Lawrence hurts, no doubt. But we've seen other teams battle through injuries, and they didn't look as helpless as we did against Detroit. That said, Dak Prescott has been one of the biggest supporters of McCarthy, emphasizing that the players are fully behind him. We're in McCarthy's corner, Dak said after the game. And to be fair, McCarthy is in the final year of his contract after posting 3 straight 12-5 seasons. That's not a bad track record, but with expectations so high, those regular season records aren't doing much to calm the fan base. Here's where things get even more concerning. For the second consecutive game, the Cowboys failed to score a touchdown in the first 3 quarters. The only reason we escaped with a win against the Steelers in Week 5 was because of 14 fourth-quarter points. But if you look at the bigger picture, we've scored just 2 touchdowns over the last 10 quarters, going back to the 3rd quarter of our Week 4 game against the New York Giants. It's tough to win games in this league when your offense is sputtering like that. Falling behind 27-3 to the Lions took the running game completely out of the equation. We finished with just 53 rushing yards, And it's the third time in our last 5 games that we haven't surpassed 70 rushing yards. So what's going wrong here? Well, part of it is McCarthy's play calling. Since taking over the offensive duties, he hasn't been able to find a rhythm, and the lack of balance is glaring. But, like Jerry said, the players have to execute too. The offensive line hasn't been giving Dak much time, and our running backs, outside of a couple of games, haven't been able to get much going. This is the big question, right? Should Jerry Jones stand by McCarthy, or should he make a move while the season is still salvageable? Let's be honest, there's a lot of frustration in Cowboys Nation right now. We're 6 weeks into the season, and while 3-3 isn't a death sentence, the trends are worrying. But Jerry's patience might make sense for a few reasons. Injuries. It's hard to judge a team when they're missing key players like Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. Once we get them back, the defense should improve. Past success. McCarthy has led this team to 3 straight 12-5 seasons. That kind of consistency buys you some leeway, even when things aren't going well. The players believe in him. As Dak said, the locker room is still behind McCarthy. Losing a locker room is usually the first sign that a coach's time is up, but that doesn't seem to be the case here. That said, we can't ignore the fact that the offense is struggling, and McCarthy is the one calling the plays. If we don't see improvement after the bye week, Jerry might not have a choice but to rethink things, especially with tough games against the 49ers and Eagles coming up. So, what's next? Well, we've got the bye week to regroup and hopefully get some of our key players back healthy. After that, things don't get any easier. We face the San Francisco 49ers in Week 8, and that's going to be a tough test, especially if the offense continues to struggle. But here's the silver lining. We're still 3-3, and the season is far from over. We've got the talent to turn things around, but it's going to take better execution on both sides of the ball. The question is, will McCarthy make the necessary adjustments, or are we headed for another disappointing season? Now, I want to hear from you. Is Jerry Jones right to stand by Mike McCarthy, or do you think it's time for a change? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. And don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on any of our Cowboys coverage. We've got a lot of season left in Cowboys Nation. We're in this together, so that's where we stand, folks. It's been a tough season so far, but there's still time to turn it around. What do you think? Do you agree that the coaching is the biggest issue, or do you think it's the players who need to step up? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Let's ride this out together, Cowboys Nation. There you have it, folks. The Cowboys are at a crossroads, and Jerry Jones is sticking with McCarthy for now. Let's hope the bye week brings some much-needed adjustments. Until next time, stay strong, Cowboys Nation. Go Cowboys!